Sandra Fluke made a name for herself in the past week. No, not the one you're thinking. By testifying before Representative Nancy Pelosi's congressional committee that women with serious health conditions at Georgetown University can't afford birth control pills for treatment of those conditions because the Jesuit-run school's insurance plan won't pay for contraception. How has this story, told by this angelic figure, so captured the hearts of the mainstream media? And what if it's just not true? I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, joined now by Bill Whittle and Stephen Green. So you may want to turn this off right now, since we're three men talking about women's reproductive rights. How dare us? What could we possibly know? Men, in her opening statement to Pelosi's committee, Sandra Fluke didn't talk about sex. She talked about cysts and tumors that can be treated only by birth control pills, which she says Georgetown University denies to women who writhe in agony like gunshot victims. I'm not making this up. Well, I spoke this morning, made a phone call, talked to Laura Hardman Crosby, the director of student insurance office at the school. She says birth control pills can be prescribed for medical conditions, and that only the student's doctor makes that determination, not the school. She also said students can refuse the group insurance plan offered through the university if they already have adequate health insurance, and the university does not bar those outside plans that offer birth control prescription coverage. Well, Stephen, the real hearing on the Obamacare contraception mandate and its impact on religious liberty didn't make much news, other than the stories about Representative Darrell Issa's failure to feature women more prominently and his refusal to let Sandra Fluke testify at the last minute. However, Nancy Pelosi's fake hearing became an overnight sensation. How did this happen?
Well, because Republicans suck at this stuff. Darrell Issa puts up a bunch of guys, bunch of men, no women, which allows the left to turn it into a discussion about birth control, even though that is not what it's about. It's about religious liberty. And Nancy Pelosi throws a fake hearing. She borrowed the room. They ought to slash her budget is what they ought to do, so she can't carry on these antics like this. But you know what, the Republicans' biggest mistake, and this is why they always lose, is that they treat the progressive left as if they were playing by any kind of rules. It's not so. The rules are made to hold Republicans down, not Democrats. Laws and the Constitution are meant to be bent all out of shape. Civility is for suckers, and if you don't believe that after the last 4 or 5 days, you haven't been paying attention. It's time the GOP stopped treating the progressive left with a respect they don't deserve. It's got to stop.
By the way, Darrell Issa's committee did hear from 2 women, but it was in the afternoon after the journalists had already filed all their stories. They figured 3 hours of testimony was enough for them to draw their conclusions. Hey, Bill, you've said in the past that Republicans, like Steve was just indicating, are just stupid. I mean, they either can't or won't fight back to counter this leftist narrative. But given the fact that Fluke's testimony was not only a charade conducted under false pretenses, but was filled with distortions and misinformation, do you really want the GOP to use the tactics of the left to defeat them?
You don't have to use the tactics of the left, Scott. All you have to do is tell the truth. First of all, as you pointed out, the woman lied through her teeth. That's number one. Secondly, as Steve pointed out, our constant, perpetual, ongoing fatal mistake is that we assume we're dealing with adversaries with honorable intentions. Let's get that out of our heads right now, as we can see here. The fundamental issue is this. I don't care. All the things you said that mitigated the university's position, I don't care if they're there or not. This woman has decided to attend university at the one place that is known to be a Catholic university, and one thing that's known about Catholics is their position on birth control. For her to say that now suddenly, as attending this Catholic university, I can't get birth control, or birth control pills to medicate certain kinds of conditions, don't you find that a little disingenuous? How many colleges are there in the United States? Hundreds, certainly, probably thousands, right? And there may be 2 or 3 where this is the case, so she sought that out in order for her to testify about how awful this is. This is an agent provocateur for the left. This is what they do. They made it about birth control instead of what it's really about is with a First Amendment right to mind your own business and live your life according to your own rules. That will not be allowed in Barack Obama's America.
You know, if I was in the recruiting office at Georgetown, I'd be running ads that say, Georgetown University, we're so good, it's worth risking your health to come here. Steve, what's the real issue here? I mean, what should we really be debating, and what's the principled position on that issue?
Well, the real issue is this, and it's not so much a principled position, it's just something that doesn't get said enough. And that is that when people are free, when people live in a state of liberty, they're free to get along or to just avoid each other, ignore each other. And you know what? Even if you're avoiding each other, you're still getting along. You're just getting along by not getting in each other's faces. But when you combine everything into the same pot, all of our money, all of our health care, our education, our retirement, when you put it all in the same pot, stirred by Washington with the one big spoon, then people can't we aren't free to get along or not get along as we choose. Instead, it's every man and woman for themselves trying to get control of the spoon. The left loves to talk about community, but it's not community. It's a dogfight, and it never ends.
Can't have community with compulsion. That's Stephen Green, the vodka pundit. Well, Bill, as you know, philosophical principles and intellectual position papers only go so far. Sandra Fluke told stories, and she won the news cycle with that narrative. What kind of stories can we tell to compete with that?
Well, first of all, let's not lose track of the fact that she won the news story because the news media is owned by the Democratic Party of the United States of America. Let's just get that out of the way, and let's say that every single time this thing comes up. It's not like the Republicans super dropped a ball. If you control the testimony, you control the TV cameras, you control the outcome. As Lionel Chetwin said the other day, quoting Stalin, doesn't matter who votes. What matters is who counts the votes. Right? So it's not a matter of what the information is, Scott. It's a matter of who controls the information. Let me just close with this. There are precious few areas of American life that are not directly under American federal government control these days, and our religious institutions are primary among them. When Barack Obama overreaches and tells Catholics they must pay for contraception against their basic principles, that is a direct violation of the First Amendment of the United States of America. As far as I'm concerned, it's an impeachable offense. Now, that means that the position of the church has to be destroyed. That church's philosophical position has to be destroyed, and you destroy it by having some pretty girl on camera talking about somebody writhing on the ground. And isn't that mean? And why do we have to be so mean? And we fall for it every day because we've become an Oprahized nation of people who can't think their way out of a paper bag and feel everything.
Bill Whittle is co-founder of DeclarationEntertainment.com. You'll find him all over PJTV.com right here. Well, there's a woman studying law at Georgetown. Maybe she sits next to Sandra Fluke in class. She's a devoted, lifelong Catholic who chose Georgetown because the school shares her religious values. Now the federal government requires her school's insurance plan to pay for birth control pills, morning after abortion pills, sterilization, and other procedures that she doesn't need, want, or believe in. Her premium dollars subsidize free contraception for ladies like Sandra Fluke. It's against her will. It's against her beliefs. But thanks to the federal government mandate, this new free entitlement means she no longer has a choice. For Bill Whittle, Stephen Green, and the entire Trifecta crew at PJTV.com, I'm Scott Ott.